Hello and welcome to the first in a very special series of Festival of Work MHR podcast special episodes. I'm Andy.
I'm Alice.
And as you may have already seen, we are going to be broadcasting straight from the Festival of Work for the next couple of days. We're going to be bringing you 6 or 7 special episodes straight to our website as we are here in attendance at the Festival of Work. We're going to be holding conversations about a number of topics. What are we going to be covering?
So what we'll be covering over the number of days that we're here is mental health in the workplace, which is a topic that's being spoke about across all organisations. We're having a look at communication, what that means for you in the workplace. We've also seen about migrating HR technologies and a couple of hot topics which we've seen around the Festival of Work already, which is to do with sentiment analysis and AI.
Yeah, so lots to cover, but also we've got some special guests joining us today and tomorrow. So if you are at the festival, you can find us here at F74, or you can find some of our other colleagues who are demoing our People First and other products available on I-40. So do have a look. We're all here, there and everywhere. You can find MHR quite easily. But on this stand today, we're going to be joined by Jonathan Males, who's going to be talking to us about performance psychology, what it means to be human at work, and the work revolution.
Yep.
We're also going to be joined by Dr. John Salter, MBE.
Yes.
Who's going to be talking to us about her career, her experience and leadership through that. Fascinating talk that's going to be.
Yeah, really interesting history as well. I'm very excited for her to be joining us on the couch today.
Me too. And we're going to also have Richie Maddock joining us tomorrow to talk about employee attention and experience. So some really good, relevant talks. We're hopefully going to be grabbing a few people from around the festival and bring them onto the conversation.
I've been looking at who's been walking by. As you can tell, we are literally situated right bang in the middle of the Festival of Work. So you might get a few photo bombers, I'm sure, as well.
I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people hanging around in the back trying to get their kind of like name badges in and like brands in, which is fine. That's what happens here, right? So it's going to be very chaotic. There's going to be a lot going on that you can expect for us in the next couple of days. This is our first one. If you stay on our MHR Global website, on our Festival of Work page, you'll see all of them trickle out for the rest of the day. But first, Alice, I thought we could kick off the first 2 days with a topic we talk about a lot, which is employee experience and communication.
Yes.
These are hot topics for the festival. There's lots of talks going on around about how to make a better employee experience.
Relevant for all businesses, isn't it? It's all about the employee experience.
It's absolutely relevant for everyone. So, and we talk about it a lot at MHR, right?
Yes, we really do. And I think that comes down to what is it that really brings together the employee experience. And I think the pinnacle point is it's about communication. It's the impression you have on your first day, or even actually if we take it back a step, it's your onboarding experience. What are you told about the company there? How do you feel about your manager and your team, and the lasting impression? And then obviously what carries through, I think, for your entire career and kind of employee journey is communication. That is how you feel about the workplace, it's how you feel about your job, which is why I think it's a good point to be starting today.
We talk about it every week, don't we? When we do a podcast live out on Fridays, right? Everything comes down to communication enhances employee experience, and it's how you do that, right? I mean, we're going to be talking about it today on our other stand about how People First aids communication and connects people up with HR tech. HR and payroll tech is going to be a huge feature of this festival.
Definitely.
So there's a lot we could talk about, but at first I thought, let's go into some stats.
Oh,
exciting, right? Yeah. But
bring in the numbers.
Stats are key. The data tells us everything. And what I thought we could talk about in terms of employee experience and highlighting why it's so important to elevate it is that we did some research towards the start of the year, right? We surveyed about 250 HR professionals from across the UK and Ireland just to get their thoughts on how they can boost employee experiences and what's making them walk away from organisations. And the stats are quite alarming, actually.
Okay.
So we found out that people want to work for organisations, it sounds obvious, that respect well-being, right?
Right.
That are talking about well-being.
Yeah.
So around 86% of those that we surveyed said that they would leave a job that don't feel like they're enabling well-being in the workplace.
Right,
so crucial for tackling employee experience,
really
right?
Important. But when we speak about well-being, I guess we're not just talking about one day a year. We're talking every day that it needs to be integrated in.
Embedded in the culture. It's not just about, okay, we're going to have a day where we're going to bring someone in to do some massages or talk about some stuff. It's about going, no, how we work encourages a good mental, physical, financial well-being.
Yeah,
right?
Definitely. It's how you feel on a Sunday evening.
Yeah. Oh, you're getting those 6 p.m. dreads? And is that a healthy sign of an organisation that's looking after you?
Which the answer is it's not.
Yeah,
It's not
exactly.
good if you're having the dread on a Sunday. But
As well as the that 86%, 83% of HR officers admit that the main reason that employees turn over is stress.
right, and that's something we spoke about on a podcast a few weeks ago, stress in the workplace, which ultimately I think must be one of the pivotal points that someone says, right, I've had enough, I don't want to work here anymore. But again, it should be sounding alarm bells if people are mentioning stress in their exit interviews or they're mentioning in their check-ins, which, with people first, that helps have that communication, which is what this kind of chat's all about. But ultimately, if it's being picked up on, it really should be an alarm bells, I think, for the HR team, for the business, for anyone in a leadership role in that organisation.
And sometimes there's a stigma. If an organisation is not very comfortable talking about well-being or bringing that topic up, they feel like it's going to open doors to conversations they don't want to have. Like it's going to highlight a stress problem. Well, actually, quite the opposite. I think enabling an open conversation about stress, about your well-being, opens doors to feeling more supported as well. So it removes the stigma of talking about how you're feeling and getting support from your manager or your employer.
Yeah, definitely.
So employee retention is, obviously more important than ever when we're highlighting these stress problems, or we're highlighting that well-being needs to be addressed. The recruitment process takes, average on 7 weeks, and it costs a business on average £3,000 to hire a role.
Right.
So you can't afford to lose people, right? If you've got high turnover, you've got high stress. So employee experience is obviously incredibly important.
Yeah.
And that's before you get into, the efficiency of the training drops and all these other costs of everything else that comes in, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of employees are talking about boosting employee experience. So that's why it's important.
Yeah.
Right?
And how you do that is one of the methods, communication then.
Communication is crucial, right? So we've talked about well-being. We've talked about that actually 2/3 of employees say that they'd quit a job within 12 months if there was no learning and development opportunities.
Yep.
Likewise, 1/3 of employees have to quit a job due to stress or burnout, which well-managed well-being initiatives can reduce. So that's one of the ways. Well-being initiatives, how you communicate that is crucial.
Yeah, I think a couple of things you mentioned there are almost touch points that should be in the employee journey. So we mentioned obviously onboarding, where you should be reaching out and saying, here's a bit more information about the company. But then we spoke about check-ins and you're speaking about retention.
Yeah.
I think ultimately what we're really saying is to retain staff is you need to be having those regular communication points, which could be a check-in, it could be a survey, it could just be a genuine chat, but putting it on your radar. Put 15 minutes in your calendar, but make sure you're having them with your employees.
And that's exactly what our guide and research has suggested. So a lot of organisations aren't doing enough, right? They're not doing themselves any favours, and they're not talking to their employees enough, right? How can you have an effective system of managing well-being when you're not initiating those initiatives and you're not showing the employees value? Communication is key to unlocking that problem. Employee experience is built around how your employees are feeling. If you're not communicating with them on a regular basis, you don't understand their feeling, you don't understand how you can resolve their problems. So you can't, you don't put plaster on a broken arm, as we say in our guide. You have to constantly manage the problem and understand and open those doors to communication.
Right.
So the stats are alarming. 14% of organisations say they run an annual satisfaction survey.
How many, sorry?
14.
14?
Yeah.
Less than 20% then?
So that's a sign that we need to be doing something a bit more, right?
Yeah.
25% of organisations run a monthly satisfaction surveys. So 14 annual, 25 monthly.
Yeah.
45% run satisfaction surveys quarterly.
Okay.
And
it's quite interesting.
Yeah.
There's different times. I feel like monthly is quite a lot.
Yeah. So for a whole organisation, but it depends on your size, right?
Again, it does, yeah.
75% of organisations aren't interested in using pulse tools or ways to figure out how satisfaction levels are working.
No, see, that's interesting, because I feel like pulse tools is where you get, right now in the moment, the most raw bit of data that you can. If you're saying, okay, a survey's coming in 2 weeks' time, keep an eye out for it. You're building a bit of suspense for that, but people might get into a certain mindset ready for it. But if you're pulsing surveys, you would think that would be the immediate, this is right now how people are feeling in your organisation. But if you're saying that that's not preferred, I wonder why. I wonder what it is.
Is it an awareness that it's important? Perhaps.
Perhaps.
Well, Interesting. You should ask that question.
It's like I knew.
So why aren't employers and talking to their employees, right? So
Yeah.
it comes down to walls being up between employees and employers. Even if you're sending out lots of satisfaction surveys, it doesn't mean that they're being used effectively as well. So
Okay.
a lot of business may not do it because they're like, oh, we didn't get the responses we wanted, or we didn't get the investment in it, people didn't really buy into it, so why should we bother again?
Yeah.
That's not necessarily because they don't want to, it's how we're communicating it, right?
Which is, I think, maybe a key point is to have a strategy. Don't just do
Yeah.
it for the sake of it, but why. Answer why.
Yeah.
You know the how surveys or check-ins, that sort of thing. But it's a whole picture, isn't it? It's one thing launching it. It's something to analyse the data, but actually it's embedding it back again as learning.
How are you telling your employees that you've heard them, you've listened, you've actioned, and
Yeah.
you're going to do something about it? That's the thing. That's the reassurance, right? And
Yeah,
not being
I'd
afraid
say
to go,
so.
we recognise you've addressed something that we might not be aware of or we're uncomfortable doing, but we're going to listen to you.
Yeah,
right?
and you need to be open-minded with the results as well.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely a key thing. Don't just see it as a negative. See it as a learning.
Yeah. So even if you send out surveys and you get responses from all your employees, right? Are their responses truthful? Like, are they going to be like, well, my manager's going to read this, I'm not going to say that. So that's a problem. People don't want to fill it in because they feel like they're going to be judged as part of their work.
Yeah.
People feel like they're going to be judged. So how are you ever going to get an honest response? 50% of respondents are using survey tools. So 50% of people are using survey tools, right? 98% of them are using multiple tools to gather insights. So suddenly you've got disconnected data. That's a problem on reporting it back and actioning it.
Yeah.
An average response rate of surveys is only 60%. So typically there's 40% of the organisation you're not hearing from, which is important to understand.
And maybe if we're speaking about engagement, that 40% are probably where you need the engagement from because they aren't engaged on maybe a day-to-day basis anyway.
That's really interesting, isn't it? Like if you're never hearing from them and you're not getting responses, how can you action the support?
Yeah.
30% of people have admitted that their feedback won't be truthful because they're fearful people are changing their answers to appease managers.
Right.
And 40% of them don't anonymise their surveys, which kind of highlights the reason why, right?
Yeah.
Failure to communicate or failure to offer surveys and doors open into organisation is going to lead to stress. It's going to lead to unknown issues that you're not going to be able to address because you don't get a truthful response or understanding of how people are feeling.
Yeah.
So that's how it links to employee experience.
Right.
But then I thought, before we wrap up, we can address that. There's other ways to communicate to organisation as well, right? In an ever digital world, even if you work in an office with people, there are tools you can use that can help connect the dots so everyone's on the same page. We do it with people first, right?
Yeah.
A social platform where you can use it to do check-ins.
Yeah.
You can do it to book your annual leave. You can do it to share community posts. It's almost a social feed, right? So everyone's getting the news at the same time.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Making sure that everyone has access to an equal bit of HR tech or communication tech that expresses all the company news and information in one place from any device that they need to use it from is vital because it makes people feel like they're on an even playing field of information. Not that, they hear that and I don't.
Yeah.
Like, I'm involved in the conversation.
Yeah, definitely.
So, if you want to hear more about that, we will talk about that later today in lots of different ways. But we have a team of experts here today on Stand I-40 who are demoing how our platform works, how it enables communication, and how it can support people, connect the dots, feel more involved, and
be engaged.
Have open conversations about stress,
Definitely.
well-being, and performance.
Yeah, it's where you can hear about the whole culture, I think, as well, of your organisation, what's being built, what's changing, and ultimately, I think for HR teams, helping them be more proactive. That's the thing with people first. You can have a look, see what features are in there that helps with engagement, and ultimately what tools are there for that communication at all different levels, like we've mentioned, the social feed, check-ins, and building out communities. So if anyone's interested, we're on I-40 where we can demo that to you.
If you want to hear more about what we do at MHR as well and our employee experience report, which we quoted today, you can find it on our website in our Knowledge Hub, Employee Experience, digging into the numbers. It goes through all the stats we've mentioned and a lot more, probably better than we've done, but we don't want to talk to you forever. Until then, we're going to be back later today with another episode and some special guests as well. So stay tuned and we'll see you in a bit.
See you in a bit.